Your Excellency, first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to answer a few questions and appear on avemaria.com for us. It's a great honor to have you with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Your Excellency, first of all, this year, 2010, has been kind of a special year for you. You celebrated your 50th anniversary as a priest and you're on your 19th year as a bishop. So you've kind of witnessed a lot of history, I guess, in many cases, especially church history. I would just like to know what events you think stand out in those years that you've served in the church as being either positive or negative for the church.
Well, there's been a great deal of things that have gone on in the church all these years. Initially, when I was a seminarian, the first pope I met was Pope Pius XII. I did that in the very middle of the 1950s. When I got to Rome in 1957, I had my first papal audience. The popes have subsequently been Paul VI and, of course, John the 23rd before Paul VI, and then followed by John Paul I, John Paul II, and now Benedict XVI. So all the papacies have had a special impact on the world, certainly. My own experience as a student priest at the Second Vatican Council stands out in my memory as something rather exceptional. I was there for the last session and usher actually in the aula of the council. Didn't have anything to say, but a lot of things to do. I recall very well the death of Paul VI, and I was a seminarian when John the 23rd, Blessed John the 23rd, was elected. So those are all significant days, and of course I was there when John Paul I was elected, when he died, and John Paul II was elected. I was here as a bishop when John Paul II died. I think that there are many wonderful experiences I've had as a priest, and the 50 years have given me an enormous amount of happiness and joy, and there have been some significant changes, but also a very large amount of continuity in the life of the church over these years. So it was a joy to be able to study in Rome, to acquire my doctorate, to be able to visit and pray at the great shrines of Europe. I have a special tender place in my heart always for Lourdes, but I enjoy going to Fatima, La Salette, and the other authentic Marian shrines of Europe. I have a great happiness in having lived in Rome for 18 years, working in the Holy See. It enabled me to also be acquainted with the antiquities of Rome, as well as by the very great icons that remain from the era of the Catholic Church, and how even today eternal Rome still is very much my second city. So I have many happy memories of the 50 years of being a priest, and the years of being a bishop are perhaps even a bit more overwhelming. I never planned to be a bishop, and I was somewhat flabbergasted to be named the Bishop of Lincoln in 1992, and is happy, however, to serve in whatever capacity that Christ wants me to serve as his priest, and since his vicar and the chief bishop of the Catholic world assigned me to this task, I'm happy to do it and do the best I can. The only regret I have is that I don't have all the talent and all of the gifts that probably should be accompanying one who holds this office, but we do the best we can with what God provides for us.
So you see really a lot of graces that have been given to you as an individual and as the church throughout these.
Well, I think we have been flooded by grace. I always like to recall the words of St. Paul in the Epistle to the Romans, and I remember how George Bernanos in The Diary of a Country of Peace said everything is grace, and so in that sense I certainly agree that all is grace.
You also worked very closely with two popes even before they became popes, I believe, when you were in the Vatican, so you have a great maybe inside knowledge of these two gentlemen, Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict now. What would you say are something about those two gentlemen, those two great men that have served the church that you think that they've done that have improved or that you think has been a really great blessing from them?
Well, I think there are many things. John Paul II, of course, was a dynamic personality, exceptionally young when he was elected Pope, only in his late 50s, and consequently brought a dynamism to the papacy that hadn't been there before. And I think his vast learning and erudition has been a great and enormous treasure. His writings will, I think, resonate through the Church for centuries to come. And he was a great respecter of the past as well as a great advocate of the future. His pro-life teaching has resonated in his famous encyclical Gospel of Life, and he certainly has done great work in moral theology and Veritatis Splendor, and his Eucharistic writings are breathtakingly beautiful, splendid. His Marian theology has enhanced, I think, and enriched the theological treasury of the Church. Benedict XVI was elected at a much later date in his life. He's more given to a quiet and scholarly sort of existence, almost eremitical, but he courageously comes out of that and does heroic work as the Pope. How he does all he does at his age astonishes me because he's 10 years older than I am, and I'm tired out, so looking at him, it exhausts me. I think that each brings a great treasure to the Church, and I think the depth of theological learning on the part of both of those popes is a very precious treasure that we will always feel helped. And the Church in generations after us will always feel helped by what they bring to the Church. I think the sense of continuity is one of the important elements that both John Paul II and especially now Benedict XVI has brought to the teaching of the Second Vatican Council, that it wasn't an abrupt break with the past, but that the Council Fathers intended to build on what was there before and not to destroy it. They weren't clearing the table and making a whole new church. And that kind of thought, unfortunately, had penetrated too much of the culture and through the culture into actually the Catholic way of thinking. A terrible mistake that the reiterated emphasis, even in the Second Vatican Council documents and the Council of Trent and the First Vatican Council, illustrate, I think, that the Fathers wanted to have continuity and clarity in that direction. I think also Pope Benedict XVI is bringing, I hope, and I believe he is, a great deal of order to liturgical actions, not only to correct liturgical abuses, but to enrich the liturgy by making it more contiguous and continuous with what had gone before. And I'm very pleased with that. I think that in the long run it will have a very beneficial effect on the Church.
Pope Benedict issued this Moto Proprio for allowing the extraordinary form to be more widely celebrated. Some in the traditionalist camp, and not necessarily way on the radical other end, somehow give the impression that this is the subtle way the Pope wants to eventually just, bring about the demise of the Novus Ordo. Do you think that's a correct interpretation?
No, I don't think that's the correct interpretation at all. I don't think the Pope is that opposed to the Novus Ordo. I think he has said quite explicitly in the accompanying document to Summorum Pontificum, the Moto Proprio that you referred to, I very explicitly that what he wants to do is see each do a corrective to the other, and that had the pastoral implementation of the Second Vatican Council gone according to the intentions of the Council Fathers and in the gradual way in which it should have gone, there would have been a mutual enrichment. The right of, we call Pius V, and the right of the post-conciliar right would be able to assist one another, and corrections and the rubbing together would make not a third kind of liturgy, but would make an enriching liturgy for both. And I think that it would give a great deal of greater reverence, greater respect, and much deeper theological depth to whatever we're dealing with in liturgical matters.
So you don't see it as being the merger of the two, but just the mutual enrichment?
I don't think there's going to be a merger of the two. I think that could have been a possibility right after the council had the conciliar document been implemented differently. I don't think it's possible now. I think they've grown too far apart, and I don't think they're really going to put together. But once again, one can't foretell the future. It's only what God wants to have happen will happen.
Sure. Also, the Holy Father, Pope Benedict, has really been behind the promotion of the new translation for the ordinary form of the Mass. You see that as a very positive thing, and what do you
the
see
English,
that will lead to?
the New English translation, according to of course Liturgy Authenticam, is much better. It's a great improvement. It puts back in what things that have been left out, and I think it conforms much better to the Latin original, and I think it has a measure of authenticity that the other one didn't have. All translation requires some subjectivity. You can't have a perfectly objective translation of anything from one language to the other. But I think that the new translation that should be effective in Advent of 2011 will make the liturgy more clearly what it is intended to be, and I think it will make the Latin more clear. It's not the translation isn't perfect, the new translation, but it's certainly a great improvement over the one we presently have, which Father Rutler says is nothing but Teilhard de Chardin on steroids.
As a bishop, Pope Gregory the Great, I believe, St. Gregory the Great said that the first duty of a bishop or a good pastor is to teach sound doctrine. Do you think that this is something that maybe has not been emphasized enough in the office of bishop in the modern times, maybe looking more as being an administrator and not being a pastor?
Well, I think there may be lapses along those directions here and there. I don't think it's the characteristic. I think that sometimes the fullness of Catholic doctrine is not presented in the full way it should be, and so certain things might be given less emphasis. That is on the part of the bishops. I certainly would have a lot of doubt about what happened catechetically some years ago in the last decades. I think the Catechism of the Catholic Church has been a marvelous clarification and specification of what the Catholic Church teaches. And I think the teachings of the popes, the encyclicals, have been very good in that direction as well. In some places in the world, there has been perhaps a distorted emphasis on Catholic social teaching and social justice and concern for the poor. This is important, and it's an important part of our heritage, but it's not what the primary thrust. If in this world only we have reason to hope, said St. Paul, then of all people who are the most to be pitied, we have to say that I have not here a lasting city. At the same time, passing through this world, we have to bring, to the extent we can, the great doctrines of justice and peace to it. But once again, it can distort things and give an emphasis to worldly kinds of political concerns over and above the kinds of concerns that must be primary, which is to save our soul. The spiritual must have a primacy over the material, and those things that are secondary have to be placed in a secondary place. Not that we consider them unimportant or useless, but that we don't put our focus and emphasis on them.